Welcome to DubLife Diaries, the podcast where passion meets the open road. I'm Joe Person, your host, and also a lifelong dubber. Buckle up, because this ride is just beginning. This podcast is sponsored by Volksmania magazine. Good times, great cars, awesome Volksmaniacs. Visit Volksmania.com to learn more about this class-leading VW magazine. Welcome back to another episode of DubLife Diaries. Our guest today has been around Volkswagens literally since about the time he could walk, right? A familiar face in the Bay Area VW scene, David Saucier's love affair with classic air-cooleds runs deep. From his iconic 67 Deluxe Sunroof Beetle to the legendary Silver Surfer Squareback, if you've been to a VW show in Texas, you probably already know him, or at least recognize him. Let's welcome David Saucier to the podcast.
What's up, Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate being here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Before we dive in, I always like to give a quick shout out to my sponsors. As we probably well know, this podcast is sponsored by Volksmania magazine. I feel it's the flyest VW magazine on the face of the planet. Best quality, super high gloss pages. It's like card stock on the cover. It's just great, man. And the folks there at Volksmania are just special. They give guys like me an opportunity to do things like this and have a stage, a platform. So U.S. subscribers, Volksmania.com, use DubLife10, DUBLIFE, the number 1, the number 0 for 10% off your subscription. Also, this episode sponsored by Salty Dub. From the beach to the bay, Salty Dub is all things VW events and swag. They got some cool stuff on the website right now. Check those guys out too, saltydub.com. Same exact discount code, DubLife10. 10% off your swag purchase. All right, my friend. That's all I got. Back to you.
Yes, sir.
So tell me, how did this obsession start with you?
Back in early days, 68, 69, when I was born, Mom and Dad had a 66 Volkswagen Beetle when Dad was in the Navy, and drove that quite a bit while we were stationed in Norfolk, Virginia. And I've got a few pictures, me behind the wheel or in the cubby hole in the back seat. And I liken the obsession back to then. Had another when I was not in high school, but just out of high school. It was 1971 standard. Enjoyed it immensely, and drove that till we got married. Suzanne and I, got married back in 1990. We drove it up to Illinois I joined the Navy and had it for a while until we outgrew it. And while stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, it was a dry spell, not owning one, but I quickly corrected that as soon as I could and jumped right back in and got a 69 when I got out of the Navy, drove it home here in Houston, in LaPorte, and had that for a while until I morphed to the 67 Bug that I have now and the 71 Square that's in the background.
Well, we're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about I want to thank you, too, for your service to this country. I certainly appreciate my freedom, and anytime I get an opportunity to say that I'm grateful, I do, because I certainly appreciate your service. So thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So is it safe to say then your parents are the ones that introduced you to Volkswagens?
Yes, I blame them thoroughly, 100%. Yes.
Okay. And then the first one that you ever owned was this one yourself, right outside of high school then, right?
The 71, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell me, in your life and in the big picture now, an older gentleman, some awesome accomplishments in your life, what makes VW the one?
Simplicity, the recognition, the thorough enjoyment of driving it. It's the cars nowadays are highly automated and modified, and these require 100% of your attention. Manual transmission, manual AM radio, hand crank sunroof, manual windows. It's 100% you, not the car, and that's partially why I enjoy it, because you're involved with the car. Car's part of you, and I love that. And that it starts from pushing that button, opening the door, and smelling that horsehair smell of the seats.
Amen. So true. So true. I was just thinking about that the other day. There's a page here that I help run in Florida called VW Club of Florida. And I try to create, engagement sometimes. I was going to bring up a question about the smell of those seats. So I'm glad to hear. I probably should do it because you relate to it.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Let's talk about the significance of your 67 Deluxe. I guess maybe significance of that model year.
It is obviously 67, whether it's standard or deluxe. First year 12 volt, huge improvement over 6 volt. And I know 6 volts have their aficionados, but that is the biggest one of all. And this one also, it's a sunroof, and it's a working sunroof. A lot of people that have sunroofs, they silicone them or tape them shut. Mine still works. Parts are somewhat available, yes, but the thorough enjoyment of having a sunroof bug like none other.
I have a 74 thing, so I know what it feels like to drop the top.
Yes. Yes.
In a sense, I can drop my windshield too. So then it feels like I'm on a motorcycle. But yeah, I can relate to that. Any stories behind this 67 Deluxe, maybe buying it or restoring it over time, or things
Sure.
to it, or maybe even the first shows?
Sure. There's two that comes to mind just right off the bat. The first one was when I bought it 12, 13 years ago from an old fella up in Kennard, Texas. He had bought it to restore for his granddaughter as a high school graduation present. Well, health problems kicked in. He contacted me knowing that I love 67s. He said, "It's for sale. Are you interested?" I said, "Yes, I am." But I was not up in Kennard at the time. I was stuck in work in Houston. I called Dad up at the farm in Crockett, and I said, "Dad, Mr. Thames is selling that 67 bug. Would you go take a look at it and tell me what you think?" He said, yes. He shot over. He said, "David, if you don't buy it, I will." So I immediately wired Mr. Thames the money for the bug. Dad and I went and picked it up, brought it home, and it was not a mess, but it was a challenge to overcome. The original motor's blown, so I had to source up an original motor, which was not a problem. But that was kind of the story about acquiring the bug. The second one is probably the most fun. My buddy Jumpin' Joe Barnett and I, he's a famous local Houston radio DJ.
And Joe, on your radio coming up the top two most requested songs of the day. And Catherine, what are you doing?
He and I went and participated in the June Bug Rally in Austin back in 21, 22. We won first place. Driving home, we had to have the trophy sticking out the roof. And for those that know me, I like to stop, celebrate the winnings. So Joe and I stopped at a bar right outside of Maynard, Texas, and enjoying a drink, brought the trophy in. Some bikers didn't like it.
Uh-oh.
So we pick it up, we go outside, we're gonna leave, and what happens at the biker bar? Shots rang out.
Whoa.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the trophy did sustain a couple of bullet holes. So now that's part of the glory of the trophy and whoever wins it.
Yeah, that's cool.
but
Crazy.
We didn't stick around. We didn't stick around too much longer after that, so we left. So that's kind of the story of the trophy that we won at the June Bug Rally.
Okay, that's a great story too. Has the 67
Yep.
ever left you stranded?
Yes, it has actually.
That's something, most cars, we say this, and I had a rule outside of high school, right? If a car ever left me, I was going to leave it and I was going to sell it, and that's how I felt, right? With these Volkswagens, I know that my cars are going to let me down and they're going to leave me, you got to have
Right.
AAA these days. But it's funny because we don't look at our old classics and feel the same way, or at least I don't. But yeah, so anything stand out there about a time it left you stranded?
This was it was the beginning of the most problematic issue that I had with the 67. And I thought it was blowing coils. It kept overheating and blowing, which it turned out it wasn't coils. It wasn't a generator to the alternator that I changed out. It turned out to be, and this was the most pesky problem, was the resistor in the rotor had blown out. And the coil, I'd thrown a new coil, it would make enough voltage to jump the burned out resistor. But as it aged the resistor in the rotor, it got worse and worse to the point where it didn't want to work. And I finally realized that when I put in a new rotor, problem solved. So I went to the resistorless rotor instead of having the one with the resistor in the rotor. The thing works like a champ now. It hits on the first key, but that is a problem that I will never forget.
Let's switch gears.
Sure.
Let's talk about the Silver Surfer. Talk
sir.
About David Blades. I want to learn about this one. That's behind you, right?
Yes, it is.
All right.
This David Blades, he was a transplant from Amarillo, Texas, and moved to Crockett, Texas, and had a AC and cooling company that he and his dad both worked for. And through his love of Volkswagens, he acquired a lot of cars. And with the cars came parts. And his obsession was paint and body. He wasn't mechanical by any means. He was paint and body man. So what he would do is he would turn one into a work of art, and then he would keep them for a while, and then he would sell it. The Silver Surfer was one of them. Sadly, David Blades passed away in 22, and the Silver Surfer went through a number of owners' hands until my wife and I went to the Volkswagen Harvest in Austin last year. We parked next to it. The sign in the window said for sale. So my wife said, you know what? We need to buy this. That's all the permission that I need.
You get the grace. Let's go.
So we negotiated a price that was acceptable for both the seller and I, bought it right there, and we've had it ever since. And this is a connection to David Blades and his legacy, and it will stay with us forever. I won't get rid of it.
What month is the Harvest in Austin?
That is always in October of every year. I'm
going to try to time it right for my next class, because I teach a class out there in October in Austin.
You would thoroughly enjoy it. Gary, Tommy, and Martin do a wonderful job of putting on the show. And our club, the Bay Area Volkswagen Club, sponsors the Twink Eating contest for the kids. And we've been doing that for a long time.
Man, what a cool idea. I like that idea.
It is fun. It gets the kids engaged because they're coming up behind us to continue on the obsession with the Volkswagens. Because if you don't bring them in and show them what we have, they're not going to follow. And that's our thinking. But it is always put on around October of every year, around October 20th, 21st, 22nd, wherever that weekend might fall.
Tell me more about, I want to just learn for the listeners to paint the picture about Silver Surfer. What year again?
It's a 1971
standard
squareback.
Okay.
It's a true automatic, true 3-speed automatic.
Oh, cool.
It is.
Right. Any custom work or anything that you can highlight so we can kind of envision? I know we can see it behind you, but certainly this is a podcast that'll be audio only.
Sure. It's David Blades cut in a ragtop sunroof.
Okay.
He lowered it quite a bit. It's a little too much for my liking, but I'm not going to change it because that's what he wanted. So I'm going to leave it at that. He did a custom paint job. He removed certain badging, some turn signals from the very large turn signals in the front to put the small bullet turn signals. He did a lot of his personal touches on this car that would have made it his.
Okay.
And like I said, when he had passed away, it went through a series of owners and it ended up with us. I'm not changing much of anything. I'm leaving it as such because that's how he wanted the car.
Do you show this car? Is this a driver or more of a show car or a driver type?
It is a show and a driver.
Okay.
I can take this thing out of the driveway here in LaPorte. I can take it anywhere and it will get there faithfully. And it's also a very good shower because it's obviously it's a Volkswagen Squareback. People are not familiar with the Squareback as they are with the Bugs. They know the Bugs, but seeing a Squareback, that's brand new. And I take it as many shows as I can. Obviously, it's hard to take them both the 67 and the Squareback.
Right.
So that's why I have to get my wife involved. Say, come on, honey, let's take him to the show.
Hey, and it's an automatic. So even if it's the stick, right, we can rock the automatic. That's one of the requirements when I was looking for one for my wife was she said, well, I don't think I'll ever have an old Volkswagen. I think they're cool, but I don't ever want to drive a stick shift. So I'm out. I'm like, well, hang on. Right. Remember I told you about my Beetle in high school had an auto clutch. So you could, you could kind of shift gears, but
Yeah.
yeah. She's like, well, that sounds kind of cool, right? So here's my favorite one, right? The Carmen Ghia. So I ended up finding her one, also a 71 with the auto clutch. So,
Excellent.
yes. You said you have won some awards. Then no, that's awesome. So I just wanted to highlight that. Talk to me about the scene there, Galveston, Houston area. What's the vibe of the VW culture in that area?
It exists. It could do better. It could always do better. But our club puts on a show every year, and it draws a lot of cars locally and from afar. It could always be better. That's why when we organize cruises, we try to go outside of the area. We'll cruise down to Galveston. We'll cruise to, say, Austin when they put the show on. We'll cruise to Anahuac to go to a restaurant, and all the while it's I know it's creating, I guess, not well, trying to think of the better word for it, awareness, but people don't know, hey, that's the Bay Area Volkswagen Club. So we try to go where we hand out cards, stickers to, hey, get people involved. But the vibe could always be better, but it does exist. It does exist here, yes.
So you mentioned something there. I want to make sure we talk about and maybe even dive into the history of how you got involved. But give me the history of the Bay Area VW Club.
Sure. It was founded back in 1988.
Wow.
And of all places, the very first meeting was at Les Marks Chevrolet in LaPorte, Texas, off of 146. I know.
Yeah.
But one of the members had a good friend that was sales at Les Marks Chevrolet. So he volunteered the big meeting room for the club. And so that's where the first meeting was. And it has evolved since then. The very first show was put out at the San Jacinto Monument back in 1990.
Okay.
And we just finished up our 35th show.
Wow.
Oh, yes. And it's
very cool.
It's a big show. And I've tried to back this up with facts. And I would say we may be the oldest Volkswagen club still putting on the show in Texas.
Wow, that is cool. Cool to hear, cool to meet, cool to know that that's happening. The listeners, this club is also on Facebook, right?
It is. And for those that are interested, they can go to the Bay Area VW Club on Facebook. There are some security questions, obviously, to eliminate some of the riffraff, because we've all seen it on Facebook, but for true aficionados of Volkswagens, you will know the questions.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that's good too. Also for the bots, you won't have any fake accounts trying to get. Now you're involved in this. How many members are in this club?
We have, at any given time at a meeting, and we meet every first Thursday of every month. Any given meeting, we could have from 12 to 18 members showing up consistently.
Yeah,
and,
nice.
And it goes from up and down for the meetings, because obviously people work, raising kids, shift work.
Sure.
But we have that, and that's what it is. When we'll do cruises or participating in other shows locally, they know who we are. They know who we're representing. We always throw up a little pop-up canopy with the banner saying who we are. And you cannot go anywhere here locally. I say locally, Galveston, Houston area, that people know who we are.
That's a cool club.
It is.
It sounds like it's been around for a long time. You have kind of a rich culture. You guys have a pretty decent scene there. It seems like it's been around, like you said, this club's, 35 years. There's club members that are engaged, showing up to monthly meetings, and then there's, organizing rides and all that fun stuff and cruises. Just tell me, in your personal opinion, being versed and probably traveling, quite a bit over your life, like myself, like most people, what makes the Texas scene different from other VW communities?
Probably the image of actually being in Texas. That would be the image. For viewers, say, in England or Ireland, they would see this. And I know that they're going to probably hit on my accent. That's not a problem. But a lot of people that are out of state, out of country, you're going to see this. They're going to think of Texas being the image of, we all have trucks, we all have oil wells, we all have cattle. Well, that's not true. That is not true. We have lots of Volkswagens here that are still in somewhat decent shape. More northern counties of here than the Gulf Coast, because obviously the Gulf Coast exacerbates it with the salt air.
That's right.
But true older Volkswagen still exist and was quite popular in Texas for a long time. And even before the interstates came around, people drove those cars for economy's sake, and really it was cheap. And then when the oil bust came around, and I'm probably getting a little off topic here, but a lot of people drove those cars during the oil bust because why? Economical. So it does exist here, but what people would get from being in Texas, the image.
Now, outside of the Bay Area VW Club, do you host any events yourself? Any other events outside of the club or the group?
Well, besides our monumental bug bash show that we do every year, we also, as a group, as a club, from the money that we raised at the show, we sponsor 3 schools for school supplies. We do that, and that's every August, September timeframe. And then the biggie, we adopt families during Christmas, and we provide toys for the kids. We provide a meal for the parents. But the caveat is they have to come to us to pick up the stuff. And we have a club member that dresses up as Santa to give them all this stuff.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah. This is what we do.
Yeah. That's a community with a capital C.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's amazing. Now, you've talked about, going to these shows, being in the scene as long as you've had. It's hard to not be recognized at a show. Has this changed the experience for you over time?
It has.
Yeah, talk to me about that.
Sure. While the recognition is nice from all the people, and I love going to shows and talking to my old friends. It's always like a family reunion or high school reunion, so to speak, seeing all those people. And my experiences has changed to where when I early on, I wanted to win that trophy. Now, I don't want to win the trophy. And I always write on my registration, do not vote for me. I want the new person coming in to start winning.
Yeah.
Because that's going to keep them coming back.
Yeah, man. Great.
That's me.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've always enjoyed seeing, and while the cars are nice, I always like seeing the people there at the show, because that means they're still around. They're still here. They're still enjoying the same things that I enjoy. It's always good to see people returning to shows.
Well, it sounds like they got the right guy in charge.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. For you, over the course of your life, being an ex-police officer, being in the military, in the Navy, a lot of times you see Navy guys, cops, even the stigma. You see muscle cars and big V8s and that kind of stuff around that vibe, right? Why VWs for you and not muscle cars?
Now hold on. Now that's not true. I can pan this camera around and you'll see the background of, and I'll do it.
Do it.
And for those that are looking, can probably pick that out, that's a 1987 Buick Grand National right there.
Ooh, man. Now,
yes, sir.
In 87, were they putting the big block in that?
No, sir. That was a 3.8 turbo V6. That was the bad boy.
Yeah, okay.
That was the one. Now that is going to go under the knife soon. It's going to be somewhat restored. That's my wife's car. That was her daddy's car, and he passed away.
Wow.
Now we have that car. So yes, we do have that. We do have the muscle car, and you cannot see it. But I'll turn the camera back to the Surfer. But out in the driveway is another one of my loves. It is the Chevrolet C10 trucks.
Yeah, I love C10s.
I have an 86 long bed love. I've always loved the Chevy square bodies, and I have that. So don't let the Volkswagen sway you. I do have other loves.
Is the square stock?
No.
Yeah. Tell me about it, man. I know it's a VW podcast, but everybody can appreciate old classic trucks too.
It's the little story behind it. It's a 1986, the same year I graduated high school. I let my youngest daughter, my number 3 daughter, drive it to high school. She was an instant popular hit. They're having it at school. But that was in stock form.
Okay.
Now, once she graduated high school, I jerked out the 305, put in a little warmed up 350, I had the 700 R4 gone through to shift a little bit better, a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
And the stock 10 bolt is now a 342 posi.
Ooh,
But you cannot tell because the truck is neither raised nor lifted. So it appears stock, but it's not.
cool. I like that. We're
Yes,
gonna,
sir.
well, and that sounds like a great truck. I've had Chevys in my past as well. I've had Fords too. I had an old 77, I had a 78 F100 Ranger Ford. Let's see. I had a 72, a C10 4x4,
Yes, sir.
which they put a 67 front end on because they took the marker lights out of the sides where the 72 had them and they put them up in
Right.
the grill. So all that was done. So it appeared it was a late 60s, but it wasn't. It was 72.
Sure.
But that was one of my favorite trucks. I had a big block in it and it was all done up and chromed out. And, it was a privilege to own and drive that truck for a few years. I owned it out west in Colorado and it was a great, great truck for a small time. Every time you started that thing and drove it down the road, though, it was $25 in gas. So the days of $25 filling the tank and driving for a week like we do in our dubs.
Right.
But anyhow, back to the Volkswagens. What's the VW scene taught you most about community and also about craft?
To tolerate other people's tastes in, say, paint, accessories, lowering, raising, engines. It's while you have your favorite, what you do to your car may not appeal to other people, they're going to customize their vehicles how they want. Totally cool. I have no problem with it because that is your car. You drive it how you want it. I have no problem with that. Purists will come in. And while I am a little bit of purist on the 67, sure, not so much on the 71, but I think the purist of any Volkswagen, and no matter what year, can probably be the worst critics. And I try not to be that guy. And I catch myself doing it. And when I do, I stop because that owner of that vehicle doesn't want to hear any criticism about their vehicle unless it's invited. Oh, no. So that has taught me to be a little bit more tolerant towards other people's vehicles. And you try not to create instant enemies. I say enemies. That's a bad word. Non-friends or people that won't talk to you or they just don't want anything to do with you.
Right.
Because why? You're talking bad about their car. So it's taught me a little bit more about tolerance.
Yeah. The over opinionated guys that show up, it's like not a lot of love there. Not a lot of
that gets tiresome.
Yeah. It is. It's draining for sure. Because you have to put up with it, right? It's like yeah, especially if you're a community leader, you want to set the right example and you don't want to push them away, but at the same time. So yeah, I get that for sure. Tell me, what would be some advice that you would give maybe the next generation? We spend a lot of thought and time, and I have other guests that come onto the podcast, and we talk about this a lot. We hope and we want the next generation to be interested in these cars like we are.
Yes.
But you and I both know it's dying off, and where there is a scene for these younger kids, it's not as popular as it is for folks my age. And there is no right or wrong reason as to why. So what we try to do in the community is put as much interest into the younger folks, kind of like the idea you said, where let's let the new guys win the awards and that type of stuff, because that'll keep them interested.
Yes.
What advice would you have for the next generation getting into the VW scene, working on their cars and building them up?
Jump in feet first and be as interested in it as you can. Do not be afraid to get your hands greasy and dirty, because that's what these cars require. They require maintenance. Do not be afraid of that, because in turn, it's going to reward you with trouble-free miles when you're driving. Yes, adjusting the brakes can be a pain in the butt. Yes, adjusting the points can be very aggravating. Adjusting the valves, yes, that is very involved in doing so. But in that, you will be rewarded for trouble-free miles as long as you stay on top of it. Do not be afraid of that. Get your hands dirty.
Good advice. Do you ever feel like there's a spiritual side to being involved with the VW community?
Yes. Yes, we all talk to our cars.
Yeah.
A lot of people, a lot of people name their vehicles.
Yeah.
Some people they understand their cars better than they do their spouses.
That's something.
And I'm not trying to get in trouble with Suzanne. I'm sorry, Sue, but that's just the way it is. And spiritual, yes. And we were all exposed to that in an early on, back when Herbie made the silver screen. That had a lot of me believing that, oh, these cars have a soul.
Man, well said. And then, there's the whole connection to, Germany and everything over there as well, with the history of these cars, which also makes it very cool and almost gives it a feeling. Some can associate that to potentially a dark time, but it had to be dark before it could come, before it could be light. So
that is correct.
And then now these cars are celebrated for, their ingenuity and their engineering, and, the fact that we can drive around town in 50-year-old cars, and they are dependable.
Yes, they are.
Yes. So good stuff. All right, let's talk about modifications or any type of customizations. Have you done any over time that you regret?
Not too many. No, not too many. I did try one time to use double Holly bug sprays on my old 69. Yeah, it didn't work. It was way too rich. It was like I had a refinery following me everywhere I went. So I would say don't do that. But I did try it. That was probably the biggest mistake that I ever tried. But since then, I've learned that less is more. And I followed that rule on my 67. Mild camshaft, a good cleanup of the heads, good valve springs, pays off dividends. And while it may not seem like a lot, for these little cars, it doesn't take a lot. And that was enough. That was enough. And there's plenty of websites, that Samba's one of them, that you can glean a lot of information from that's good, but there's a lot of bad.
Yeah.
And to people that jumping in, don't go head first. Just test the water first with your toes to start tuning and performing. Start slow. Start slow, because it can get out of hand real fast.
Now, talking about the next generation, talking about, these kids and hoping that the next generation of builders and enthusiasts, do kind of get bit by the bug, so to speak, the Volkswagen bug. What's your take on the EV conversions? Because those seem to be very popular in the younger community.
They are. And while I appreciate them, not going to buy one, nor am I going to do a conversion on any of my vehicles. They have their place, and maybe it's the new draw. I'm not sure, but they're starting to show up at the Volkswagen shows.
I know it.
They're not going away.
Right.
It's going to be a part of what we do, and they have their place, and I appreciate them. It's quiet. They'll sneak up on you if you don't pay attention to them on the road, but they have their place. But I won't own one because I'm more prone. I like the filling up the tank of the gas. I like checking the oil. That's what I like to do.
I like the sound and the smell of an air-cooled
Yes.
engine, period.
That is correct.
I can leave it on that. I like the sound and the smell.
Yes.
I'm not against them, and I'm okay if that's what it takes to get young kids into these class cars. Fine. Right. As soon as you fall in love with the car, well, eventually you're going to probably want one with an air-cooled engine, just right because.
Yes.
So, whatever gets them in and gets them attracted, to keep the class W's going, I feel like I can be open to it and consider it. However, I probably would not convert my car to an EV. I just like the way an old air-cooled engine sounds, looks, and feels. And yeah, I like everything about it.
Right. I would not discourage anybody from buying one or doing that. No, that is not my call. That's all their call. You want to do it? Great. I myself will not.
Right on. So the next questions I have for you are going to be more fast-paced, kind of like a rapid fire, kind of looking for fast answers, whatever comes to mind first. All right. Favorite VW model of all time?
1967 Volkswagen Bug, Deluxe Sunroof.
All right. He was waiting with that one. Yes. And you own that.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Most overrated VW model of all time.
Oh, the split window buses. They whoo, overrated and overpriced.
Yeah,
And
buddy.
they shouldn't be, but they are.
Yeah, you are not the first person to come on and say that. Now, there's like two sides to this, though, because some people say, oh, there's no way any old air-cooled VW could be overrated, right? There's others that have very, very consistently picked the split window, and it's not for any other reason other than, if you're above 6 foot, it's hard to get in and squeeze in, and I've heard comfort, I've heard slow, I've heard overpriced,
Yes.
And then I say, okay, well, what's the replacement then mentally? Most people say, and I'll let you say it.
The next one's going to be following the bay window buses.
That's right. Everybody says I'd rather have a bay window.
Yes.
So yeah, okay, all right. How about Beetle or bus? If you had to pick one.
Beetle, Bug.
Beetle, Bug.
100%.
Okay. Probably a very stupid question for you, but I'll still ask it. Air cooled or water cooled?
Air cooled.
All right. How about worst breakdown story?
Worst breakdown was the resistor burning up in the rotor, leaving me stranded at midnight on Highway 290 between Austin and Houston, coming back from the June Bug Rally one year. And it took an hour to finally get it running and go home. We finally got home 2:00 in the morning, but oh my God, made for a long day.
Yeah, those days and nights are rough ones, and certainly ones that aren't forgotten. What's always in the glove box of one of your dubs?
Always a set of wrenches, points, accelerator cable, clutch cable, a length of a fuel line, fuel filter, certain hand tool like screwdriver, Phillips head, flat tip, a ratchet, and a set of I can't take the back. A set of brushes. It may not be for me because I have an alternator 67, but somebody else might need the brushes.
Dang, man, that sounds like a toolbox, not a glove box.
It's a small bag.
Yeah, okay. How about favorite VW or a show snack? I guess it doesn't have to be a VW show, but this is a VW podcast. So favorite VW show snack?
I like when it's available, it's always barbecue.
Ooh, you're in Texas, of course.
Always barbecue. We have a vendor that comes out to our show and does a fantastic job. So we try to stick with that, but it's always been barbecue.
Are you familiar with the Dallas-Fort Worth area at all?
Regrettably, yes.
Okay. So in Dallas-Fort Worth, downtown Fort Worth, there's a barbecue spot called Heim, Heim, Heim Barbecue. About 4 years I spent in that area teaching a sales class up there, and I would bring all my students to this spot. Why? They have barbecued bacon burnt ends.
Oh yeah.
And buddy, I got to tell you, they melt in your mouth. You can chew them with your tongue in the roof of your mouth. They are to die for. I even tried to duplicate his recipe, which is online, and I can't. I'm not a Texas guy for Texas barbecue, but I talk about Texas barbecue a lot on my podcast because I am privileged enough to go like to the Salt in Austin, and there's a whole bunch of them around Austin that I fancy, and that I will make sure I don't skip when I come into town.
No, don't do that.
Yeah,
you're cheating yourself.
Yeah, so I can appreciate Texas barbecue. Who's like the most influential person that you've met because of VW shows?
Oh, I can't say one. There's many. One goes back. Okay, and this is going to kind of a long list, but I'm going to make it as quick as possible because I know this is quick.
That's all right.
Donnie Smith, VW Foreign, Donnie Moore, Gary Alexander, Tommy Smith, Martin Lehman, Sammy Smith, Jumpin' Joe Barnett, Bruce Carlisle, James Holm. All these are either members of the Bay Area Club or other people that I have associated with in the past that are with the Volkswagens. And there's no one person. I can't. Even Paul Smith is another one. He's been doing this forever, and he's another one I love to go talk to. But there's no way I can name one. None. Not one.
That's what I love so much about this community. Just that answer. You mention a whole lot of people, and it's like they're all of equal value.
Yes.
That's what's great about our scene. All right, so maybe some final thoughts from you. Like what really kind of keeps you stimulated, keeps you coming back to the VW scene year after year, even if you're organizing an event or, just doing something for the Bay Area Club, what keeps you coming back? Give me some final thoughts for the listeners.
The club, we meet every month and we decide what we're going to do. And obviously I've already told you about the school supplies and the Christmas drive that we did. But any time that I go out, say at a Freddy's Frozen Custard up here close to where I live, we go there Friday nights, and it's always a story that somebody has for a Volkswagen. And one in particular, and this has been a while, this little girl walking by the Volkswagen, she run her finger from the front fender along the door to the back fender. And all she was saying is, the whole time she did this, she was saying, Herbie.
Whoa.
The whole way. So that tells me that little girl knows the value of the Volkswagen. She's already been, not indoctrinated, that's a terrible word, but steeped into the Volkswagen, the air-cooled way. And then I know that little girl will always remember that because, she knew who the car was in the movie screen and equated it to my car.
Cool.
So yes, that still comes around, but like I said, always somebody has a story about it. Or, hey, I knew a guy that still has the car. Really? Tell me more. So that's what keeps me going.
Okay. Tell me where people can find you. Do you have social media? Maybe shout out the Facebook page for the group. I'm sure everybody can find you.
Joe, a relatively easy person to find. If I'm not on the Bay Area's Facebook page, I can be found on Samba under VW Crazy. That's my screen name. Hell, if you search my name, David Saucier, you could find either my email or my cell phone number. I am not a hard person to find. And obviously, there's always going to be those people out there who just like to, let me crank call or what. Yeah, okay, whatever. I'll just, block you. But the true people that will call me or text me, hey, what can I do? Or how can I get this? Or do you know of? Yes, I'm here to help you. Whatever you need, I'll do within reason. Absolutely. But I'm a relatively easy person to find.
And that's a wrap for this episode of DubLife Diaries. Thanks for riding along with us and diving into these incredible stories of the people in the dubs that drive their dreams. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe or hit that follow button so you never miss an adventure. Do you have a story to tell or know somebody else who's living the dub life? Awesome! Reach out to us. You can find us on all socials at DubLife Diaries or shoot me an email. I'm not hard to find. DubLifeDiaries@gmail.com. Until next time, keep the engines humming and the wheels turning and always follow the road that inspires you. This is Joe Person. I'm signing off. I'll catch you on the next ride.